Welcome to the Buck Stops here, the official podcast of NotInHallOfFame.com, and I'm your host, Kirk Buchner, aka The Buck, the owner and the operator of NotInHallOfFame.com, and of course, the sister sites, the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame and the Fictitious Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's Season 1, Episode 33, my God, of the Hall of Fame show, and we're looking at a few things today. Dale Hawerchuk, Hockey Hall of Famer, passed away, and we look at his career. We also looked at the Pro Football Hall of Fame and a few interesting decisions that they made, some good, some bad, regarding how they're going to look at the senior candidates and the coaching candidates. If you're a senior, it's bad. If it's a coach or contributor, it's not so bad in terms of your future potential. We also looked at how we're going to bring the United States Hall of Fame, or Athletic Hall of Fame, something that doesn't exist. How does this not exist? But Evan Nolan, my co-host, and I, we are putting something together, and we're really excited about that. Look for how that's going to build over the next month or so. Let's bring in Evan. So, Evan, how you doing, man? Chicago's out, the Blackhawks, but how do you feel about that? I guess we kind of knew that, but you're more of a Bruins fan, though.
I'm not even more of a Bruins fan. I am a Bruins fan.
You are a Bruins fan.
I would like to point out that currently Canada and the state of Nevada have as many teams remaining in the Stanley Cup playoffs at the moment.
Thank you.
I have right now the Vancouver Canucks are leading the St. Louis Blues, so they're the last. Who would have thought the Canucks would have been the last hope for Canada this year? The playoffs have been pretty good, actually. I've enjoyed them. They're on all the time, which I know you've enjoyed, being able to being an international man of leisure.
Actually, that would be sort of like a great movie of my life. Kirk Buchner, international man of not doing a whole hell of a lot because his wife's career really did well and allowed him to sort of do his dream of this crap.
Hey, man. Everyone's dream is crap. You just get to put it on air. So.
Nice. You know who'll play me in the movie? It's going to be Ricky Schroeder, but he's got to put on about 10 to 15 pounds in the midsection.
Okay. Playing me in the movie is going to be Ben McKenzie from Gotham and the OC, and probably the same is true. He's the guy who looks closest to me, probably. Although I am not saying I am as handsome as Ben McKenzie. So.
I'm not even close to Ricky Schroeder currently, and that's not a good thing. So that puts me as a solid 3.5 or a 4, but it's a solid 3.5 and a 4 nevertheless.
Hey, you're on the scale.
I'm on the spectrum, as they say it, as these kids call it. Spectrum.
I'm not sure that's what that means, but anyway.
No, neither am I.
Going back to the NHL playoffs, so what have you thought so far?
I love it. I'm actually enjoying it far more than the NBA playoffs, which is a little surprising considering how well the Raptors are doing, which is my team. They defeated the Nets 3-0. Never thought the Raptors were going to be this good this year after Kawhi left. But, it's a strange game. Every game is strange, really. So, no, I've enjoyed everything. As much as it's sort of weird to have the crowd sweetening, I don't hate it.
No, it's interesting. I think the interest point of that is, so first of all, we're probably going to be mortal enemies next week because the Celtics are up 3-0 on the Sixers. No team was hurt more by the bubble than the Sixers, who are 26-2 at home. Mm-hmm. They lost the first 2 games, and then when normally they'd be going home to play Game 3, and they didn't. They hung with the Celtics for a while, but without Simmons, they're just not capable of defending Tatum, and that's going to be an interesting next round between the Raptors and the Celtics. Presuming both teams don't blow a 3-0 lead.
Bet on that series? Straight up beer bet?
Oh, sure. Straight up beer bet. That's an easy one. That's going to be a fascinating series. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Okay.
That's one of those ones. If the Celtics lost to the Sixers, I would have been pissed. Mm-hmm. If we lose to the Raptors, I'd be like, well, that's a good I'd say the Raptors are a slightly better team, but it's at least an equal team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a quality opponent. If you lose to a quality opponent, I don't care.
Yeah.
You just don't want to be, losing to I mean, there's no reason that there were 6 good teams in the East, and the Sixers were down Simmons, which really meant 5 good teams in the East. So if we had been playing the Nets and lost the Nets, I'd be what the hell.
Right.
But if we were playing the Heat and lost to the Heat in the first round, that would have been different. The Heat are a hell of a good team too.
So for just those who are newer listeners, Evan and I, we've never met, which is kind of weird.
That is true.
This is our 33rd show together.
Well, the 33rd of this series.
Of this series, yeah, you're right. And
we've done tons of shows, and
right.
I've been. Well, I think I first contributed something to the site back in 2010, 9?
Could have been.
Something like that?
Yeah, could have been.
Something along those lines.
Been, yeah.
So
I've aged beautifully since that time. And
it's what happens when you pickle your liver.
Hey, why not? Whatever works for me. It's a Canadian thing. It's the internal Canadian tuxedo. So, but we make goofy bets, and Evan usually wins. He's up 4 beers for when we eventually sort of meet and have a drunk fest, and which means that the guy who actually has way more money than I do, I owe beer, but I feel a comeback coming because we have a current bet with the Astros before the pandemic, where we said, what was it, 63.5 hit by pitch.
63.5 hit by pitches, yeah.
Yeah, which
and the first game was looking good. They got hit by 3 pitches game 1, but that was the last time.
Yeah, so you had over, I had under, and kudos to you because you didn't take a Weasley way out. I would have, but
no,
that's the kind of guy I
mean,
am.
like I said, I had the bet earlier last year with one of my buddies over under on games played by Andrew Luck in the season, and I said I'll set it at 7.5. And he took the over, and I'm like, "This is an under." And then he retired before the season, so my buddy paid up in that situation. I can't go back on that because the Colts have a history of underplaying injuries, and then people are out for much longer. They're like, "Yeah, he has an ankle sprain." I'm like, "He's done for the season." And they're like, "What do you mean?" My buddy's like, "What do you mean he's done for the season?" I'm like, the Colts they either have the worst training staff or the biggest liars in the league. He's done for the season, and then he retired. So he was done in a different way than I anticipated.
Yeah, so we have that one active, and you have the Patriots to win the division. I, in theory, have everyone else, which is essentially
Correct.
Buffalo.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm saying Buffalo's winning the division.
You have everybody else.
Well, yeah.
You have the Dolphins and Bills. The Jets, I don't think, enter into this in any circumstance. So.
Right. So yeah, exactly. So 2 active bets, and I guess this will be a third one that we will know in 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly right.
All right, sounds good.
So, sounds good. Anyway, back to the hockey playoffs. So one of the things, like I said, it was interesting. It seems that hockey doesn't necessarily matter where you play. Hockey's always exciting, and the emotion is always there. Basketball seems to be a lot more crowd dependent. You know what I mean? It's interesting to see how that works. I feel like the teams respond better in front of their home crowds, and in hockey, I don't think it matters as much.
I'm not surprised. Because a lot of that is sort of like showing off to people. There's a lot more swag, pardon that word, or that word that we never used in sports 10 years ago.
Right.
So, I think there's something to it, like where you want to show off. Whereas, like in hockey, you're more insulated, if that makes more sense.
Right, and if you don't do your job, someone's going to run you into a board. So if you're not paying attention and on all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the good thing, I guess, with the Canadians being eliminated earlier tonight, although this is a weird playoffs in which I've been rooting for the Canadians at least to advance a round. So we didn't have to play Tampa this round, and for the Canucks because the Blues are possibly my least favorite team in sports right now. Yes. Even more than the Astros. I really hate the Blues. I've watched almost every Blues. I've watched more the Blues Vancouver series than the Bruins Carolina series because of when I'm working during the day, then the Blues League games are on at night.
Oh, okay.
But the good thing, I guess, particularly from that guy I remember who banned me or blocked me on Twitter, saying that how ridiculous it would be if one of the teams that wouldn't make the playoffs wins the whole cup. There four of those teams advanced out of the whatever weird best of 5 qualifying round. All 4 of those teams are now gone.
True.
So we're left with only teams that would have been in the playoffs. And essentially in the Eastern Conference, we have the final that we probably would have gotten, presuming that the Penguins still got upset by somebody, because we have the Flyers and the Islanders from their division and the Bruins and the Lightning from their division. Mm-hmm. And so it's essentially the same setup we probably would have gotten anyway.
Yeah, and again, we're cheering for the same NHL team. I've got in my ex-work pool, Boston over Vegas in 6.
Oh, nice. I don't know. I'm trying to decide if the Coyotes were just that bad or if the Avalanche are that good. And if the Coyotes are that bad, what does that say about Nashville, who got, manhandled by them?
You never know, though. I mean, it's that weird thing where Tampa lost. They got swept by Columbus a year ago.
Yeah, and then Columbus came to play the Bruins. The Bruins swept them right out.
And if I remember right, yeah, because I remember all of that, because that was when I was in the process of moving to Barbados. And so, I got back into Toronto, so I was listening to Buffalo Sports Radio. And, just how Tampa was... I might be off on this. It wasn't like they were even odds, but they were so far favorites by, I want to say, 50% over everyone else.
Yeah.
Because they just dominated so bad.
Yeah, that was the thing about the Bruins making the Stanley Cup Finals last year, is that was the easiest playoff road I think we've ever had. Mm-hmm. Even St. Louis was a team that was down and out last year in January before storming back, and they were not a very high seed. But the Bruins played Toronto, who they always beat, then Columbus and Carolina in the Eastern Conference Finals before playing St. Louis, who I can't remember if they were the 7 or 8 seed out west. That Lightning team was significantly better than the Bruins. This Bruins team, I think, is a notch, not a huge notch, but a slight notch above Tampa, who's got a pretty leaky defense at times and questionable goaltending from what I saw in that series. So, although now we have Halak.
Well, that's what I'm glad you brought that up, because that's what I was going to ask you. What's your thoughts? Rask just saying I'm done.
Well, apparently, and so understand, first of all, Rask did this at the beginning of last season. So back in November of 2018 for the 2018-2019 season. He took a week off back in November for family reasons. And Halak stepped in, they played 3 games, and then Rask was back. So he did it again. Everything I am seeing is basically that there was a serious problem with one of his children.
Oh, okay.
And
enough said.
He needed to go back for that matter. Now, he played terribly in both those first 2 games. His mind wasn't really in it, which is something he has a tendency to do at times. But it's essentially that was it. And that he wasn't, now everything is fine with the child. It was apparently very scary from everything they were reporting from former teammates and other people who knew that it was very scary situation for one of his kids. And he left, but then whether he could come back or not, if he's going to do it, apparently everything's fine. So it's interesting to see he's not doing that. And it wasn't the greatest look that he's been golfing the last 4 days.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there are spies who have Tuukka Rask's tee times being posted at a country club in I think it's in the suburbs of Boston. So that's not the greatest look.
Hey, well, it worked for your president when his brother died. Yeah. Well,
he's being buried at the White House or I don't know what's going on there with that. So, but anyway, it's great how it's played out. It's weird that I'm rooting for Vancouver. But yeah, if Vancouver wins, then it's Vancouver, Vegas, and Dallas, Colorado, which is again basically a divisional final. Mm-hmm. So in the West. So it's I'm not used to rooting for the Canucks. It's one thing that Blackhawks and Bruins fans have in common. But should we pass to the passing in hockey this week anyway? We're already here.
Yeah, because I didn't know he was sick. So, yeah, Dale Hawerchuk died at age 57 from cancer. Current Barrie Colts coach of the Ontario Hockey League, and just a phenomenal player. back in the 80s. Runner-up for the Hart, which is a pretty big deal most of the time, but I think it's a bigger deal in the 80s when it was dominated by Gretzky and Lemieux. So if you even get top three in that, you're a pretty big goddamn hockey player.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I thought of him first because of the way when we were kids out in the United States, we saw hockey, which was basically whoever the Bruins were playing in maybe one other game a week for a while before ESPN picked it up, and now ESPN forgets hockey exists. But I knew him best when he was with the Sabres towards the end of his career. Because he's in the division. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like, that's how I learned he passed away. It was on the Buffalo Sabres Twitter.
Yeah. But I remember him best from, NHL 94, NHL 95, where games I spent probably a year of my life combined playing. And Hawerchuk was a big part of that. But, I didn't really know he was on the original Jets for a while. I knew he was a great hockey player, but I realized this was the Jets. But looking back at those Jets seasons, and I know scoring was way up back then, but, man, seasons of 103, 91, 102, 130, 105, 100, 121, 96 points back to back to back from 81, 82 season to 88, 89. That is very, very impressive. And I didn't realize he'd been sick too. Apparently, this was his second big bout with cancer, and he'd survived it a couple years ago and didn't make it through this time. So.
It's sort of funny, like from the 80s, and it's like the second week in a row we were talking about Hockey Night in Canada. So, like, the way that was in Canada, like for that, like back before you could sort of like watch every game that existed in Ontario, you're pretty much stuck with the Leafs game and whoever they're playing. And if you wanted to, you could go to CBC French and then watch the Habs. And so then there would always be a doubleheader, which would either obviously be in Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, or Vancouver. And whenever it was in Winnipeg, it was so weird to me because this was before the arena that they have now, which was, I could be wrong on this, but I think it was the lowest capacity in the NHL, which is, I guess, a big catalyst as to why, that and our weak dollar, why Winnipeg and Quebec City lost their teams in the 90s. And on the one side, just sort of like showing how almost different we are. So like there was like one side of the building, and it was like a portrait of Queen Elizabeth.
Okay.
Which is just, I don't even know how to say it. It was so Canadian and so wrong Canadian, if that makes any sense. I
do understand.
Yeah, I love the United Kingdom. I hate the fact that we pay $33 million a year for governor generals and other crap that has nothing to do with the advancement of our country. Politics, sorry, done. Let's continue.
Yeah, there's nothing that riles our listeners up more than
Queen Elizabeth?
Payments to the British royal family by Canadians. That is a hot button topic.
It's not even a payment. It's just $33 million of jobs for nothing.
Yeah,
for nothing.
Yeah. Back to Hawerchuk though. One thing I thought that was interesting. Hawerchuk was the first player to reach 1,000 career games before the age of 31 in NHL history.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, which means he started young and stuck around and played pretty much every game every year. So he was a hell of a player. He played with the Blues and the Flyers towards the end of his career. By the way, in juniors in 1981 with the Cornwall Royals, he scored 183 points in 72 games.
That's sick. That is so sick.
81 goals, 102 assists. Hockey was different back then. I'm not sure the goalies were.
You know what? It's not that far off.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's a clear loss for hockey. One of the, at this point, probably somewhat forgotten great players of the 80s. He's not held in the same revere as some of the guys he played at the same time or same level of reverence.
Mm-hmm.
But much too young at 57 to pass away.
Oh my God, definitely. I did see that the Jets had a little thing on their Twitter. The Sabres. I don't want to throw the Coyotes under the bus because, like we talked about, how Arizona still actually owns the original Winnipeg legacy. I don't know if they actually sort of acknowledge that.
I don't know either.
Which is interesting because, like, his number's retired by the Coyotes.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. They should just switch that.
Absolutely. Yes.
Does anyone in Arizona really care about 1983 and 1984 Winnipeg hockey?
I'm going to guess one. And the only reason I say that is 3 or 4 years ago, Pauline, my wife, and we went on a ginormous road trip down to the United States from Jasper, Alberta. We did in 11 days. We went down the entire West Coast. Seattle, Portland. Before stuff that's going on now. San Francisco. Crap. What's that city? That town in between it doesn't matter.
Santa Barbara?
No, it was north of that. Where Clint Eastwood is. By Pebble Beach.
No, but you're in lost.
By Pebble Beach. Monterey.
Oh, okay,
Yeah. So went from Monterey to Las Vegas and then down to Phoenix. And my wife's an avid golfer. She loves golf. But I hate golf. And anyway, she played. I picked her up. And I see a license plate, and it says WPG2PHX.
Wow.
Winnipeg to Phoenix. What else could it possibly be than somebody working for that? Don't know who it was. Fancy-ass car. So long story short, that's the guy who cares.
Okay, so we got the one.
Yeah, we have the one. We have the one. I'm assuming that had to be. It had to be hockey related. How could it not be?
No, well, I mean, unless they were excited they moved out of Winnipeg and end up in Phoenix, but
as they should be.
Who knows?
Actually, did I ever tell you? Like one of the first interviews I ever did for the site. When it wasn't recorded. Well, it is, but not in that way. It's a gentleman named Tyson Nash. Still works there. So Tyson is a former Coyote, and he became an analyst for the Coyotes. And there was a brief point in time, actually, where were they before that, where they thought the team might relocate, and he just did not want to go back to Canada for the cold.
Yeah, there was talk there going that they were the ones that talked about them in Florida for going to back to Quebec City when they built the new arena, right?
Sorry, Winnipeg. Sorry, they're going back, and then it turned out to be out of nowhere the Atlanta Thrashers.
The Atlanta Thrashers. Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Right, yeah. So then he was just so happy that he got to stay there. Because I know Winnipeg very well, man, and the people are some of the most awesome people I've ever met. The weather is the worst I've ever encountered. Ever. And I'm a Canadian. I'll leave it at that.
So,
but yeah, R.I.P. Dale Hawerchuk.
Do we want to run through a few more of the quick passings quickly?
Yeah.
There aren't any other huge names to talk about, but there were some people that passed away. College Football Hall of Famer Herb Orvis, who was defensive tackle from Colorado. He was inducted back in 2015. He passed away at the age of 73. Also played from 72 to 81 for the Lions and Baltimore Colts in the NFL. We had a couple of trailblazers, I guess, in Angela Buxton, who is a British tennis player who was Althea Gibson's partner for the doubles championships at the French Open and Wimbledon back in 1956. She passed away at the age of 85. But never probably going to be in the Tennis Hall of Fame, but does have two doubles titles, which is not something everybody has.
Two more than I have.
Two more than either of us do, and she was there with Althea Gibson. Hal Singer also passed away, who is a jazz saxophonist, who normally doesn't come up. That's not a category normally comes up, but I thought it was interesting because he's the last surviving male survivor of the Tulsa race riots, they call it, but basically as you learned from The Watchmen this year, the destruction of a very affluent part of Tulsa by a very highly Caucasian crowd back in 1921. So that was, that was 99 years ago. But he was 2 at the time. But he was the last surviving person of those riots, or last surviving male person for those riots. Yeah, you said you learned about that from The Watchmen this year, right?
Yeah, I never even knew that existed. So like when I watched The Watchmen on HBO, I feel like an idiot now, but looking back, then you sort of like do some research. Like I was one of many sort of like learned that existed. I had no idea.
Right. Yeah. No, it doesn't get brought up much in history books and things like that. But yeah. So a very well respected. I think he had like 12 or 15 albums as a jazz saxophonist, but also a little bit of his history passes with him. We had Ben Cross, the actor who played Harold Abrams in Chariots of Fire, one of our films that comes up quite a bit for the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame.
Well, yeah, but not really, because they were based on people who existed.
I guess that is true.
Yeah.
All right, I take that back. You're right. So a great sports movie.
Yes.
But you're right. They were real people, so that doesn't count under our system. And then 3 members of bands who are probably never going to get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but have quite a few fans. Todd Nance, the original drummer of Widespread Panic, and one of the last original members. He was only 57 when he passed away. But he spent like almost his entire career with Widespread Panic. From 1986 to he kind of half retired in 2016 because he was dealing with health issues. But he was there back and forth from there. I really like Widespread Panic. It's music. I can't say I follow them that closely as a band, but one of the original members and has passed away. I mean, he joined them when he was like 24, and still played with them all the way through. We had Pete Way, the bass player mostly for UFO. Also played with Ozzy Osbourne and Michael Schenker Group and a few others among them. He passed away at the age of 69. I don't know. Do you think UFO is someone who ever has any sort of shot at getting? I don't know if either Widespread Panic or UFO do. But what would you say?
I'd say
any support?
I'd say if one has a better shot over the other, it's UFO. But it's like 0.1 over 0.05.
Right. Got it. Yeah. So, and I guess the last one is Frankie Banali, the drummer for Quiet Riot and Wasp. Also played with Billy Idol for a while, played with Steppenwolf for a while, played with Faster Pussycat for a while. But yeah, he was with Quiet Riot when Quiet Riot was the rage in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So he passed at the age of 68, I believe, of pancreatic cancer.
I think Quiet Riot, their debut album might have been one of the first 10 vinyls I ever bought.
Wow.
Yeah, I think, yeah. If I were to like try, I might be off on this, but like some of the ones I either bought or received would have been Michael Jackson Thriller. I think everyone at that point had that. although I was more sort of like a little rocker little kid. So Def Leppard, Pyromania, Quiet Riot, Van Halen 1984, ZZ Top Eliminator. I'm blanking on a few others. Like some of them were like these goofy compilations that were sort of like done by K-Tel and shit like that. But they, not covers or stuff like that, but like quite a few of those.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the drummer from your childhood has passed away. So.
One of many.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that is our
hoorah, yes.
There you go. You do it much better than I do. Death call for the week. But
nice.
Should we a half hour and get to our top story? I guess.
Mean the pro football?
I'd say so, right? Yeah. I guess we'll start with pro football. Yeah.
Yeah. Just a quick thing on that because. The pro football, and because like Vinny Laspinuso and I, we talked quite a bit on that one, but I certainly want your take on this, obviously. They have announced the good and the bad and the ugly, really, which actually you and I talked about that already, how the seniors are only, it's going to be what, one senior, one coach, one contributor. And we already know the coach and we already know the senior, Drew Pearson, Tom Flores. I'm happy with both. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming you are too.
Yeah, I'm happy with both. I think Drew Pearson should have a buddy, but that's neither here nor there in terms of senior candidates. But yeah, no, I think Drew Pearson, the only offensive member of the 70s, 80s, or 90s all-decade team who's not in. It's a very good person to be putting up here. And Flores this is his third time as a finalist, counting last year, and definitely someone else who bears a lot of consideration for his contributions. And given the people who we've been talking about who should be in, I have no trouble. There are people who might want Don Coryell first or someone else, but Flores is alive. Right. Let's get the guy who's alive the opportunity to get in first, and then we can talk about Coryell or whoever else later. So I mean, he's 83 years old. I think he deserves to be in there. Let's have him enjoy it while he has the opportunity.
Actually, he's 88.
He's 88? I thought he was 83. Oh, wow.
I think he's 88. I could be mistaken on that. I'm just going back on from what I remember when he got passed over and sort of like the stuff that came online. But I believe he's 88.
He's 83. He was born March 21st of 37.
Oh, okay. Well, then... to hell with you online who said he was 88. Either
He's
way,
got plenty of time.
Oh yeah, exactly, yeah. And so like one of the things that too, and you and I talked about that before we went on air. So John McClain of NFL.com, I believe, mentioned on a show some of the people who they looked at who could have been finalists and. Like the finalist, for the year. And just before we sort of like go with that list, a lot of people have already been sort of like pre-congratulating Drew Pearson and Tom Flores. Please don't.
Mm-hmm.
While I think that Evan, myself, and a lot of people think it's a lock, it's not.
Nope.
Things can happen. Things have happened. So hopefully they're going to go through, and I think they will. I have the high. This is the best version I've ever said of these two words together: cautious optimism that it's a lock.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but you never know. I mean, people have gotten to the doorstep before, and somebody just decided. I mean, let's go back to Bob Kuchenberg. Mm-hmm. Kuchenberg was was a finalist twice, where he just needed an up or down vote, and neither time did they vote him in. And he passed away, and he's still not in. But he got through the whole process, to the final five twice, and they never voted him in. He wasn't even one of the 20 finalists for the 100th anniversary last year. So just because you get there doesn't mean they're going to let you in, unless you're a commissioner, and then they'll figure out a way to get you in. But.
Yeah, David Baker will get in before Bob Kuchenberg.
I have no doubt on that.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I started that sentence making a joke, and it's like, that's not a joke. It's going to happen.
Yeah, it's not a joke. It is true.
Yeah.
So
some of the other names that came up, and first up, before I sort of go through that, I didn't even catch that. So that was through Vinny Lespinuso, who sent that off to me. So Stanley Morgan, someone who you're familiar with from the Patriots.
The Stanley Steamer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a very, very good and underrated football player. Really the standby offensive weapon for the better part of a decade for the Patriots back when we had a moderate amount of success. But again, a Patriots Hall of Famer, I, as a Patriots fan, would not. He's not even in my top 5 Patriots I would be advocating for the Hall of Fame at this point. So,
okay. Randy Gradishar, who is if it wasn't Pearson, that would have been the guy I would have been hoping for.
Right. Yeah. Agreed. I mean, he or Ken Riley, who just passed away. But again, at this point, let's get the live people in.
Mm-hmm.
I hate saying like that, but I mean, get Pearson in, get Gradishar in, get some of these other folks in while they can enjoy it. At least we still have only one spot.
Right.
Let's actually have people able to enjoy the honor.
Yeah, so the late Tommy Nobis, and he just only passed away a couple of years ago. Chuck Howley, what one time was number 1 on our Pro Football list. Roger Craig, one of the people I'm most passionate about. Charles Follis. What were some of the other ones here? Elsie Greenwood.
George, another guy who everyone just presumes is in the Hall. If you didn't know, that's somebody you would just presume is in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, absolutely. George Kuntz, Joe Klecko.
And that's another one who a lot of people have said is one of the top people not in the Hall and has a ton of support from what I could see online after they made the Pearson announcement. So it wouldn't surprise me if it ends up being Pearson, then Gradishar, and then Klecko, from what I'm seeing.
And then a pair of Bengals, Ken Anderson, Ken Riley.
Yeah, both of them should be in already.
Yep.
But they're Bengals, so.
Exactly, yeah. It's almost like you put on one of the coolest helmets in sports and like, hey, you look good, but you look too good. I don't know. I mean, I love that helmet. I do. I don't know what to say.
It's a great look. It is certainly better than their Ohio Brethren's uniform.
Oh, God. Yeah, the Cleveland Browns, and yet the helmet's not really brown.
No, well, I told you where the Cleveland Browns got their color before, right?
Yeah, you did.
Got their colors?
Yeah.
Yeah, for those who don't know, and this is from, I'm not making this up, if you go on Bowling Green State University's website, the Browns used to practice at Bowling Green during the off season, and Paul Brown liked their colors and stole their uniforms. However, Bowling Green got their colors when the president of the university was riding a trolley and saw a woman's hat that he particularly liked and decided that brown and orange are going to be the colors of Bowling Green University's sports teams. So the Cleveland Browns colors originally came from a woman's hat from like 1903.
Well, a woman's hat, like that sounds kind of sexist there. That's not very woke.
Okay, Mike Milbury.
Ooh. Well done.
Sorry.
That's really good. Hey, I'd rather be Mike Milbury right now than Mr. Oh God, what's his name? Tom Brenneman?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, Milbury's comment was incorrectly stated, but you know what he was trying to say.
Exactly.
He was trying. Yeah, he said it. Mike Milbury is not known for putting things in the best way. When he called Sedin twins, what did he call them? The Bobbsey twins back in 2011. There are a whole bunch of them that he's done over the years that have ranked for people's travels. So what he's trying to say is that in the bubble there's no distractions because athletes tend to have a lot of admirers. and that in the bubble that's impossible. That's what he was trying to say, but that's not how it came out. So I am as. I mean, if people aren't figuring it out by now, I'm pretty much on the very left side of things. But that is one that apologizing for that is just silly.
But sorry, what's the first name of Brenneman? Tom? Is it
Tom? Yeah,
okay.
Tom.
Okay. That one there, like, because I was watching that in real time, it's holy shit. With that, I don't ever think we will ever see in our life a man apologize while calling a home run as he's taking a farewell for never calling sports again.
My favorite part of that home run, by the way, is did you see where it landed?
It was the left side. I don't remember.
It landed in front of the Planet Fitness sign for the judgment-free zone. It was really, really funny. I watched it back and I saw, and he's like apologizing, and there goes the home run. And I was like, it's landing right in the judgment-free zone. But yeah, no. And his apology after the fact was so disingenuous. It's like, I had no idea what the derogatory connotation of that term meant.
Okay, but what's he gonna do though? I mean, like, he had no time to think of it. It's like, okay, like, you just screwed up your entire career. You're calling a few innings, and you have no time to think about any kind of possible political commentary. So he's coming up, he's riffing. Now, granted, obviously the guy's got some homophobic things when he says that. And for those who haven't heard what he said, it was like right before a doubleheader, the second game of a doubleheader. It was a hot mic, and he said, what was it? F capital of the world regarding gay people. We don't even know what he meant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's just like riffing.
I mean, because if that's Kansas City, that's news to me.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know. Like, hey, whatever. Live and let live. I don't give a crap. But
I don't know either. My point is, though, like, it was a weird comment. I can't even imagine what he was talking about ahead of time. He's only got the second half of that sentence.
So I like the whole thing. So I was talking to like one of my closest friends as this was sort of like all transpiring in real time, and just like watching this sort of like go through on Twitter and social media. It's like, I can't like, okay, so he was calling the first couple innings. So like, what happened here? So like, somebody just like got into his ear and says like, you know what was on a hot mic? What? When you said what? What do you mean what I said? Because he probably doesn't even think of it. He's just like riffing with the guy who in the truck.
Yeah.
But you know, and it was sort of like weird. So then you look at other Twitter comments. Well, he's questioning his faith, and like he was using his faith, like, you know, based on my faith. Like he doesn't. He has no time to think of this. He knows he's completely screwed in real time, and it's on camera. Like, I'll give him a pass on that to a point, to his reaction. Obviously, you can't employ him anymore. I know he's not going to be with the NFL this year or next year. I don't think he's been fired completely as we're doing this show.
No, not yet. He's on leave, but I mean, this is clearly another instance of Jeremy Roenick's anti-straight bias that's going on with these networks. I mean, what are you going to do?
I don't know.
The damage is done, but like just saying, like, I used a word that I shouldn't have used, but the idea of him saying like he had no idea what the term meant.
Did he say that?
Yeah.
Okay, I missed that completely.
I'm talking about a statement that came out later.
No, okay, I don't know what statement came out later. What did he say after?
Oh, hold on. Let me find it for you.
Okay. He had no idea what the F word meant in terms of that? Oh, okay. Then if that's what he's trying to go with, then he deserves everything he gets. When you're a screw up, everyone screws up.
I'm looking for the actual quote.
Oh my God! If that's what he actually said.
I made a comment earlier tonight. No, that's the actual statement.
Okay.
I'm looking for.
Yeah, that was the live thing. Like when he heard that in a few innings in, right?
Yeah. That's not the one.
Okay.
I'm looking for this one. Hold on.
Just blows my mind.
Yeah, what does it say? I mean, who would have thought of it from a team that was once owned by Marge Schott, huh? Although I can't say anything because my team was owned by Tom Yawkey, and he was worse than Marge Schott. Marge Schott at least liked dogs.
I haven't heard that name in forever. Oh my God!
Look at the actual quote, and I can't find it. But it came out later, and essentially that he didn't know what the history of the word and what it meant and stuff like that. And
you know what? Unless you're British, you can't say that.
Oh, he was talking about the cigarette capital of the world. That's
exactly. And even then, like, holy crap. Well,
yes, here it is. I used a word that is both offensive and insulting. In the past 24 hours, I've read about its history. I had no idea it was so rooted in hate and violence, and particularly ashamed that I, someone who makes his living by the use of words, could be so careless and insensitive. It's a word that should have no place in my vocabulary. I certainly never utter it again. Yeah.
Well, I guess by you, in the public conscious, no, it won't be.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm good that I'm 41 now because I still got 2 more years in Henry Hyde's thing to have a youthful indiscretion. So, people say stuff all the time that comes back to blow back in their face. But that one is
okay. But
there's no way to know what that meant.
All right. So let's back up though. I mean, like obviously he's saying this not in public, or at least what he thought. Does that excuse him, or like I don't think it does, because there's certain intent, but at the same time,
there's no good. There was no good way out of it once it was done. But just the whole playing dumb is just so tiresome.
It's right up there with the Hulk Hogan excuse,
which is
well, you heard what Hogan did, right?
I'm trying to remember exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, so Hulk Hogan. Crap, I'm not prepared with my Hulk Hogan racist crap. Hulk Hogan went. His best friend was a radio personality named Bubba Love Sponge, and somehow he got videotaped having sex with Bubba's wife in Bubba's house. Okay. Whatever. Fine. Not fine. Weird. I don't know. But in the video that came, so the video came out of a Hulk Hogan sex tape, and then later on it was the other stuff that what he said, because he used the N-word in reference to his daughter dating a black guy.
Oh, okay.
And what he said is, and again, I'm, if I have this sort of like wrong, I mean, people can sort of look this up, but Hulk basically said, it's one thing if she's sort of like dating a basketball player or like some kind of athlete.
Jesus.
It's quite another if she's dating an N. And that was on camera while he's banging his best friend's wife in some weird cuck thing going on. I don't know. And
then.
Yeah, you ever heard of the website Gawker?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, may it rest in pixels.
Right. That's because of the Hulk Hogan thing. Because he sued and won, and they're done. Having said that, I mean, like when I was talking to like my close friend back in Canada, he's a Jamaican Canadian. He says, "Well, clearly we know what you really think." So
right,
F you, we're done, that's that. My childhood is over.
Yeah, so, all right, let's get back off of this and back into what people are here for. So the list of anyone from that list who surprised you other than Stanley Morgan, Morgan
was the biggest. Yeah, Morgan was somebody I was shocked to see there. Having said that, I am happy that they had like Ken Anderson, Ken Riley, like people who were not part of that 100th Centennial slate class.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm happy overall. We'll see what happens going forward.
Got it.
But I think also our weird main events, we've sort of like... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I would say, before we got on to that, I just have a couple more things on the Hall. So the coaches, you found out the final ones for that, correct?
No, actually, that's out.
Oh, that was out? I missed it. Who are they? I know it's Holmgren and Coryell,
sorry. No, sorry about that. Holmgren, Coryell, let me bring this up here. Buddy Parker, Dan Shaughnessy, Dick Vermeil.
Okay. All right, so here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Is Marty Schonheimer ever getting the Hall of Fame?
Eventually, but we might never see it.
He has 200 career wins. Only 8 players and 8 coaches in NFL history with 200 career wins. He got fired from a team after he went 14-2 at one point because Troy Brown knocked a interception out of I can't think of the defensive back's hands for San Diego. And they went 14-2, lost to the Patriots, and he got fired. He went 5-13 in the playoffs, and has never been to a Super Bowl. Thank you, Ernest Biner. And has never won an AFC Championship game. But he has 200 wins, and a lot of people are going to be getting in who have less than 100 coming up here. Jimmy Johnson doesn't have 100 wins and is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, but he's on.
I'm just wondering. He's won 2 championships. I understand that.
Yeah, but Jimmy Johnson's also on TV, so Baker could sort of like knock there.
That also makes sense. But my point is, I've never heard anyone once advocate for Marty Schottenheimer getting the Hall of Fame. And just based on wins, he belongs. And although, again, playoffs mean a lot, and 5-13 is not good.
No, it's not. Well, and that's the same sort of like regular season record that has kept Coryell out all this time. Innovator, yes.
True.
Genius, yes. End result, it's not there.
Yeah, losing record is career, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now that's I think Coryell's going to be next. I don't think there's any question about that. I suppose Shaughnessy could be next because Shaughnessy's had although Dr. Z was the Clark Shaughnessy guy, and Dr. Z's he had that stroke and has now passed away. It's Shaughnessy, I'd say, have an outside chop. I bet it's probably Coryell, and then after that, it's interesting. I'd say Holmgren would be my choice out of the ones remaining. Just not only his work as a coach, but also his work as an executive. I think has to. I know he's good. He would be going in as a coach, but I think that has to enter in or have a discussion about him. But yeah, if they're going to do 5 coaches, like numbers 3, 4, and 5, I think 1 and 2 were preordained. 3, 4, and 5 are going to be very interesting.
No, I agree with you. Like that's sort of like how I would look at that. I think next week they're going to have their contributors. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
I don't know why they didn't do it at the same time.
It's going to be Bud Adams.
Yeah, I think so too. But I don't know why they didn't do it at the same time.
It's too soon for Kraft, and Modell would cause Cleveland to burn down. So, and the person they should put in, they're not going to, is Art McNally. Mm-hmm. Because they're the only league without a single referee in their Hall of Fame. And McNally is 96 years old and one of the most respected referees ever. He was one of the finalists for the 100th anniversary team, and he was not selected. He should be the person they put in because they got the 3 owners left really with Adams, Kraft, and Modell, and then other folks. But put McNally in. The man is 96. get a referee in the hall.
You know, and it's not like Kraft isn't like lying somewhere, getting a happy ending, you know, relaxing.
Hey, that was thrown out of court, man. That is inadmissible in a court of podcast. So, to be fair, again, I'm a Patriots fan. What the cops in Florida did to get the tape is absolute bullcrap, and you would not want that happening to you. They faked a bomb threat, they faked a bomb threat to get access to the salon, and got a judge to sign off on putting cameras in there, thinking that there's a bomb threat. And then there wasn't. It was a sting operation. So the reason everything got thrown out was they basically lied to a judge to get a warrant.
Okay, didn't know that.
So,
I would think there's bigger things to worry about right now. And then...
Oh, I know. I agree. I agree. But in general, you don't want the cops lying to get warrants to then get something going on. You know what I mean? So, anyway, I wouldn't want that happen to anyone. Again, I'm a Patriots fan, and believe me, Bob Kraft has great things about him and terrible things about him. But he's not getting in this year anyway, and so I think it's going to be Bud Adams. Anyway, all right. So on to the real main event.
Yes. I think in the next 6 to 8 weeks, we are going to figure out the first step for something we've been talking about a long time. I don't even know how the hell it came out. Just you and I just shooting the shit, realizing that there was no United States Athletic Hall of Fame. Like, honestly, Evan, where do we come up with it? Was it you? Was it me?
I said it, but it was in response to something that you had said, and it was back in like March or April.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't exactly remember. It's honestly something I've thought of for a long time. I actually have notebooks with Hall of Fames of various types. I have an American Hall of Fame, you know, just like Abraham Lincoln and other people who should be getting into the American Hall of Fame as well. Because A, I love writing in notebooks, and B, I love Hall of Fames. Mm-hmm. So it's something I've thought about a lot, but it had one of those things that just sat in the back of my brain. I probably haven't thought about it in half a decade or more. And it just popped out from something you were saying. You may have been talking about Canadian Hall of Fame.
Could have been.
And I brought up, I don't know, we should go back and listen to our own podcast, but who has time?
Exactly.
But no, the point is it doesn't exist, and we want it to.
Yeah, we want to, and we sort of looked, because the fact that there actually is a Canadian Sports Hall of Fame not far from where I used to live, and didn't even know that. Now we live many, many countries away. And as we sort of looked at that, they allowed in, and no disrespect to the great nation of Canada. I love Canada. I'm a proud Canadian. We should not have 350 Canadian Sports Hall of Famers because we're not that good. And this might sound sort of like corny because like you and I kind of talk politics. We're both sort of left. I have this weird notion of what I want America to be, maybe from a poor Canadian looking at a pop culture lens in the late 70s where our stuff was crap. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so looking at sort of like that stuff, and it was American sports mostly. That was my passion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I love hockey. Don't get me wrong, but I'm an NFL guy. I'm an NBA guy. I'm an MLB guy. I'm all this stuff. I love American sports. I love it. And right now, to do something sort of positive about the United States where we're not really talking about some of this other stuff that's going wrong, it just feels more important now than before. Does that make sense, or am I off here? Like, you tell me. I'm a Canadian. I don't know.
I completely understand what you're saying. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I completely understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But all that aside, we have been working and asking a few people because there are a couple of things that we agree on.
Mm-hmm.
That the people who are doing the nominating should also not be the people voting. So we're looking at the Patriots and Cardinals Hall of Fame in that way.
Absolutely.
In which we're putting it out there and then the fans are voting.
Right. Yeah. So we're going to put together a group to sort of decide who the nominees are, and we're just going to step back and just say, okay, here you go.
Right. Yeah, here you go. And secondly, we don't want the group to look like us. Right. And I guess thirdly, a part of that, we want to be the least famous people in this group if we can possibly get there.
Exactly. And I think you and I don't know if this was on a show or not, but when I looked at the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame and 15 members of their committee, they were all Caucasian. And Canada's a very woke country. You're white, I'm white. I
am translucent, my friend.
I'm so pale you can't see me. But, yeah,
sorry. We are the illegitimate children of Powder and Casper.
Nice. So, but yeah,
anyway, continue.
But long story short, we're trying to sort of make sure that we're putting together a committee that sort of looks representative of what the United States is, even though I'm a Canadian, whatever. But, it's how it goes, and that's what we're going to come up with. And I'm really proud of it. From the work that you and I have both done, we think that that's what's going to happen. I'm pretty excited. It's going to be, if it goes where I think it's going to, it'll be about 15, 16 of us who really reflect what the U.S. looks like.
Right. Yeah. And we're hoping, like I said, for men, women, different ethnicities, different sports that they care about. I know we've asked athletes, we've asked fans, we've asked writers, we've asked in my case, I asked the mascot, and trying to get people from all over the place to come in and participate, and then put it up for everyone to vote on. And the first, I think we've decided, for those who haven't been following all the way along, that our first class is going to be the largest class.
Right.
We'll probably have slightly smaller classes from there. And then what I mean by slightly smaller is we might have 20 the first time, and then 10 for a little bit, and then back it off from there. Just because, American sports really start in, I'm going to say 1886 with the Phillies probably, or is the first real team, right? So we're going all the way back there to now. We're talking 140 years, give or take. That's a lot of stuff for just doing 5 people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the idea you could have a Hall of Fame that you only have 5 people, and somehow someone amongst, just thinking of 5 people, someone's amongst Muhammad Ali, Michael Jordan,
so many.
Jesse Owens. There's so many. There's the idea of Babe Ruth and, I don't know, Bill Russell, and I'll throw out, I don't even know, Jackie Robinson. One of those people missing is crazy.
Yeah, so I think what we're trying to sort of come up with is a group of athletes right now, but then also sort of more than that.
Right.
What are the contributors from a coach standpoint? What are the contributors from an administration standpoint? Who are the people who sort of who built the United States in the Olympics? Just an example there. The first one coming up in my head, and I'm sure there's honestly far better. And again, I'm doing this with a Canadian lens. Herb Brooks, the head coach of the United States hockey team that shocked the world in 1980. But then you and I, we also talked, we want to have teams, a team every year. We also want to make sure that we are representing all across. And then one thing that you and I talked about, do we have a male group, or do we have a female group, or all the way through? Because you were talking about Althea Gibson earlier, someone who is obviously worthy of an inaugural class, but might not get in. So do we sort of like separate a male group and a female group? Because there has to be, well, there doesn't have to be, but I think there should be one or two women in the first group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, that's an interesting question. I think that's something we would, once we have the committee, we should put to them and see exactly what they think. And at a certain level, I'd like athletes to be athletes if possible, but you're right. If the people, let's be honest, the people who are going to be voting for this are more likely to be male and tend to be more likely to not put women in. And people like Althea Gibson, someone like Babe Didrikson Zaharias, who is one of the top. She was the highest person on the ESPN 100 back in 1999 or 2000, wherever that was, that I had never heard of. Literally had never heard of her before. And she was a ridiculous athlete. But, I mean, if you put her up against Ted Williams, who are people voting for, right? So that is something I'm beginning to waver on. Because originally I was thinking the athletes are athletes, everyone is everyone, do it all the way through. But we may end up with a situation with a smaller percentage of the Rock Hall if we do it that way. And I don't think that's fully accurate of U.S. sports.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I guess it's sort of like why when we talk about sort of like the Basketball Hall of Fame, which is itself kind of a weird entity, but there's some things they do that I like, which is a women's committee, which is also an international committee. And you and I talked about that, sort of like putting together non-Americans who pushed athletics that weren't necessarily conducive to the United States. Wayne Gretzky in hockey. I think Pele in soccer is massive for what he did in the 70s for a league that a lot of people don't remember exists, but Pele sold out arenas.
Yeah, agreed. Pele, Franz Beckenbauer is on those teams too.
And that's another great one. So, like, what non-American athlete, helped push non-traditional American sports? Because when you look at, just when you look at hockey, it's like I think Chris Chelios is somebody who should be on that first group of nominees, but Gretzky, I would argue, actually had more to do with American hockey growth than Chelios did.
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one other thing, too, is we're going to have some sort of age limit as to how old you have to be in order
50.
to get in. So I know that I personally think that it should be 50.
Yeah, I agree.
That way people are definitely done. So that means something like Tiger Woods is like 46. Is going to have to wait a little bit. But people... but I think 50 gives you enough time where generally, unless you're Adam Vinatieri, who may still be playing when he's 50, you're done with your career and you have a little time away so you can examine exactly what they did. But yeah, so I think that's the other thing that you need to know. So you have to be at least 50 or older, and there's no I'll call the Lou Gehrig exception, where if someone passes away before that, they come up. We'll just keep it to 50. Is that correct?
That's what I want. Yeah, I'm glad this came up because I'm pretty firm on this. Once you're 50,
okay, good. Because
because you can't different sports. Well, you can exceed at a different level as you're older, but what's sort of the balance? Let's just pick an age. I think 50 works.
Right, because Tiger's still going to be an active golfer when he's 50. But we will have had 32 years of his professional career to see where he's gone at that point.
One thing that I'm sort of interested, because I'm sort of anti horses.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, once we put all this group together, maybe they're going to disagree with me.
Yeah, I'm also anti-horses. Although, I mean, I'm sure people would say they're American athletes. I feel that now gets us into, I don't know if there are some very famous racing dogs out there.
I'm sure there are.
I just feel that leads us.
San Jose will help her.
Yes, exactly. We actually, when I was a kid, we had there was a Greyhound park, which is now the casino in Boston, that had one of the Greyhounds escaped and somehow ended up in my house, which was like 6-7 miles from the dog track, and like scratched on our door. And my mom opened up and just walked to our kitchen, crawled up on the floor, and decided it was going to stay. I called the dog Goldie. The dog's actual name was Tennessee Turkey, I believe. But we had that dog for a couple of weeks before we went back to the Greyhound track, I guess. But yeah, so I nominate Tennessee Turkey for that as well.
Nice.
But yeah, no, that's an interesting thing too, is whether or not we're going to do just human. I vote for that at the beginning if we want to change it later, because I mean, I understand Secretariat's the greatest horse it ever was. But I think that we should stick with humans, at least at the beginning.
Okay. All right, so like...
I don't want to be in a situation where we have more horses than women.
What if it's a woman horse?
That's fine. I guess that meets both categories, but I just, again... I'm the one thing that concerns me about what we're going to end up with, and not that we should be avoiding criticism at the beginning, but to try and be accurate as to the actual history of sports, and again, I've changed my mind on this, is making sure that this is just not all Mill Hall and we're completely ignoring.
All right, so then hypothetically, maybe we're looking at 6 categories. Male, female, and we can sort of like decide the ratio, at a later time. But I do believe that there has to be at least 1 or 2 women in the inaugural class. Has to be.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, so we could separate that. Male, female, team, influencer. Like an influencer, like a Gretzky, Pele. What would we say that?
I'm sorry?
Like, is a Gretzky or a Pele, are they an influencer into American sports, or are they a contributor? I don't know. Like, what's the word for that?
I feel like contributor tends to be more on the executives and back office type of people.
So non-American athlete?
I'd say, yeah, non-American athlete who had a massive impact in American sports.
Okay, cool. All right, so then coach, contributor.
I guess a builder.
Yeah, contributor, builder. Because I'm sure there's, like just the growth of the United States Olympic athletes.
Yeah, or someone who comes to mind for me is Eunice Kennedy Shriver, who founded the Special Olympics.
Okay, yeah.
That's a worldwide movement. Someone who pops to mind for me for that category.
All right, so we're looking at 6 categories then going forward.
I guess so. With 5 going to 6, depending on. I think we make the decision about the women once we see what the nominees list is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. But yeah, there has to be. Yeah, because I'm agreeing with you, because like I know when we first sort of like flush this out, it's like, okay, like male, women, like what, male, female, like vote on whatever you want, but it's not the same. It just isn't. So there has to be at least 1 woman each year, I think. I really believe it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. So. Okay. Yeah, I actually just looked up how old Mia Hamm was off the top of my head just to see. She's only 48, so she doesn't qualify yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess Jackie Joni Kersey would be know. She'd qualify.
Yeah, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, Martina Navratilova, somebody who pops to mind.
Okay, so these are the things we got to figure out. So is Martina Navratilova? So she's an American citizen now.
No, yeah, she's an American citizen who has competed under the American flag.
Okay, all right, fine enough. Okay, fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, that I mean, if you compete for the U.S. national team or under the American flag in your sport and you become an American citizen, I know she was born in the former Czechoslovakia.
No.
But I'd say even if you're naturalized American and competed under that banner, like at this point, let's just throw out David Ortiz. So Ortiz is a Dominican who I have no idea. I don't know if he is an American citizen yet, but if he became an American citizen, he always played for the Dominican Republic in different sports. So as much as I love David Ortiz, he would go in the Wayne Gretzky category and not the American athlete category.
No, fair enough. Like, I didn't know that Martina represented the United States. I had no idea until you just said that.
Yeah, she played in the I can't remember the female version of the Davis Cup.
Okay, so
whatever that is, she played for the U.S. for that.
Will we have then dual entries?
Meaning what?
Okay, so all right, so let's look at Martina, for example. So she can enter. Does she only qualify as a athletic contributor?
So let's take Ozzie Newsome, just for the heck of it. Just off the top of my head.
Yeah, okay.
Because Ozzie Newsome's a Hall of Fame football player and would be a Hall of Fame executive if the NFL allowed people to do that, to get in twice, right? I think there are so many people out there. Once you're in once, that should be it.
So that's how we're going to go?
There are just too many people.
Because I'm fine with that.
I think I'm fine with that too. Once you're in, if you get in as an athlete, you can put on our plaque, when we have a big place in, I don't know, where would we have the American Athlete Hall of Fame?
Apparently Speightstown, Barbados.
There we go. In Bridgetown, Barbados.
Speightstown, Barbados.
I'm sorry?
Speightstown, which is where I live.
Okay. So we have it there. We could put on the plaque. Also would have been a candidate for whatever, but they're just so many. They're legitimately. I mean, if the Canadian Athlete Hall of Fame has 300 and whatever people, that were just starting out in the U.S., like the Baseball Hall of Fame has got 300 people. And that's one sport.
Fair enough.
The Basketball Hall of Fame's got more than that because they put everybody in.
Right.
Except Chris Webber.
Well said. Yeah.
So I think that's a bright line rule we should do. Once you're in, we can put the rest of the, like you would be in for whatever, but
Gotcha.
there are just too many people, and there are going to be more and more people who are becoming eligible like every single year. So right now we're talking people who were born 1969 and before, right? Or I guess people turning 50. That's the question. We're going to do, since it's 50 years ago, it'd be 1970. We're going to do people born in 1970 and before?
Right, and then it's just going to change. It's like a float.
Yeah, and it goes up. I just want to know if for 50, whether we're doing, it had to be 50 coming into the year or 50 at some point this year. You turn 50 this year.
Yeah, it's a 50 float.
Okay, got it. So 50 years ago today. So born in 1970. Okay, yeah. So I mean there's just so many people. I'm typing in athletes born in 1970 just to be just to see what crazy number of people we're gonna have coming in here.
Well, that's the beautiful thing, right? Because each year we do this, there's going to be new people we can look at.
Right. So Steve Tomey, just looking quickly here. This is a very quick list somebody had. Just 1970 apparently was the greatest year, unless you like Easy Eddie Guardado. Jeff Garcia, Steve Tomey, Jim Edmonds. There's nobody who pops out here. These all just appear to be baseball players. There are a few football players here too. Rod Brindamore. So I mean, there's going to be a ton every single year going to be coming up, and it's just going to be there's going to be too many people. So, okay, all right. So here's the next thing. We need to set a timeline for ourselves.
Okay.
Because we want to try and get this in maybe December. Like we want to have the class finalized, right?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. So if we need to give people time to vote.
Mm-hmm.
So we set that like November 1st. We'd have the list available for people.
Yeah, we have to figure out whether we're going to do this for 2020 or 2021.
Okay.
And, that's sort of the thing. We'll figure this out in the next couple of weeks as we're sort of like reaching out to our potential committee members.
Yeah. Okay. And for anyone who's a potential committee member, what are we asking them to do? We're essentially asking them to rank their top 100 athletes, right? And then commit to resend them in. Mm-hmm. We'll compile everybody's list. If people are basically unanimous or close to unanimous, they just go up on the list, and we're committing to having like a Zoom meeting where we debate the rest of the list, correct?
Exactly, yes.
Okay, and how many people are we nominating this first year in the athlete category?
100.
Is it 100? 100.
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll figure out the numbers getting. I think we did this before. Mm-hmm. But okay, so we're nominating 100, and we can work on the numbers after that, going from there. But okay, all right.
All right, beautiful.
So let's get her done.
All right, sounds good. All right, stay safe in Chicago. I'll stay safe here in Barbados. And sooner or later, we're going to cash in on these bets.
Yes, and just so you know, it's looking like Canada is going to have at least one team continuing. So,
woohoo! Yeah, it's about
4-0 Vancouver.
Yeah, it sounds about right. We only ever get like
Ryan
one
O'Reilly.
team in
the rest of that team can go to hell.
All right, nice.
I'll talk to you later, man.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. We're going to have some more content on the regular at DownHallOfFame.com. So stay tuned and stay safe. Thank you all.